Okay, I'd like to call to order the City Council workshop for November 19th, 2020. Clerk, take the roll, please.
Yes, sorry. Leo? Lewis?
Here.
Here.
Dean?
Here.
Stanton?
Here.
Becken?
Here.
Peterson?
Here.
Did I get everyone? Trester, sorry.
Here. Okay, right off the bat, I'd like to welcome Lauren Stanton and Scott Dean to their first official duty. So welcome, guys. I look forward to working with you, as I'm sure the rest of the council is. So welcome. Any additional agenda items? If Karen has anything, or we're all set. There was an addendum to item 5G that regarding the interim city manager contract that hopefully everyone has.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to add a Campbell Road discussion to the agenda.
All right. So that would be item 5H. Campbell Road. Topic dear to my heart. All right. If there's no other agenda changes to make, we have the agenda set with item 5H added, Campbell Road discussion. Next item is public agenda or public comment regarding agenda items only. We ask the people who wish to address the council to keep their comments to 3 minutes. And please identify yourself by name and the community of your residence. So is there anyone out there who wants to address the council? I see John out there, so Chair recognizes John Helmrich.
Thank you, Mayor. This is John Helmrich from Saugatuck Township. I'm a member of the Township Board as well as Planning Commission. I'm coming to part of your workshop today because I'm very supportive of the efforts and I applaud the work that Mr. Vanderbeek has done on trail planning and trail connectivity throughout our tri-community area. And I'm happy to see this being discussed today, and I gather Monday night as well. And as a member of the Township Board, I'm looking forward to the possibility that we can be working together shortly on some of the issues on this connectivity plan. Of particular interest to me is the Silver Creek potential trail, which would require access through the former airport property that is owned by the city, but is in the township. So it certainly calls out for a collaborative effort, and I look forward to seeing how we might move things forward. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else wishes to address the council? Barry Johnson.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, muted. Item 5F, police vehicle. I wonder if there might be a discussion about looking into an electric vehicle going down the road, since there's one coming up soon. Wouldn't take a lot of research, I don't think, but maybe a good discussion item. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Anyone else?
Jane Underwood, I believe, is trying to get your
And
attention.
Jane?
Yes, I've been trying to get the total count of cars on Park Street for the season. I understand maybe the city has it. Is there someone that can tell me that? Send me an email. I know we're going to do some work, possibly have a magazine write it up, but recently with the high winds, the cars have been racing over to the oval. 4 and 5 cars at a time. And then when I say racing, they are really racing.
Well, I think in our, if I may address, is there anything more, Jane?
No, that's all for right
All right.
now, but I'll
Okay.
probably have something later.
Okay, okay. I think that's a topic that will come up when we review our Park Street plan options that the engineers are working on. There have been various traffic studies and vehicle counts on Park Street. I don't know how current they are. There's also, I think, some information available, but on a less scientific basis from the speed signs that the Sheriff's Department deployed the last couple of years, but they probably don't give total number of vehicles. But John Moxie is listening, so I think that's something he can make part of his Park Street presentation down the road. So John, if you could
Okay,
note that,
fine, thank you.
I'd appreciate that. Okay, do we have anyone else who wishes to address the council today? Aaron, can you help me out? Anybody else out there?
I am not seeing anyone else.
Okay, if not, we'll move on to our discussion items. Item 5A, Wicks Park Band Shell Project. I think the intent, Aaron, is the intent to turn this over to John Moxie, or do you want to make some comments?
I will introduce John.
All right,
John and probably Rick are ready to present the design concepts again. If you remember, council looked at them at October 22, and they wanted to have the new council members also to have input on this design, and Jim Selman. I put up in your packet the minutes from the meeting with Jim Selman, and this one is basically for the new council members and to discuss cost. So I will turn it over to John and Rick.
Yeah, and you just get John tonight. I'm doing the heavy lifting. Rick kind of did the heavy lifting last meeting, so it's my turn. Aaron, maybe it's best to, yeah, thank you. Recapping what we discussed the last time we looked at this, we presented a pretty wide range of options in terms of aesthetics for what the band shell might look like. And it became apparent that the one on the left, kind of the big pavilion concept, drew a lot of interest. So what we were tasked with coming out of that meeting was to try and develop some costs for that option and maybe a scaled back version. And the one on the right there is the one that Mr. Selman kind of liked the best of some of the scaled back options, probably not to the complexity that's shown there, but really keying on the railing and just the vibe of that if we do from a cost standpoint want to scale back. Then Aaron, I don't know if you have the estimates themselves next up in the packet, but that's probably the next best place to go.
At the very end of this section, after the designs.
Okay, I won't make you scroll all the way down. I can just quote them here. I will preface this by saying that normally at this stage we would really like to have some actual quotes from the manufacturers of the pavilion structures. Some of the numbers in this estimate are generic from pavilion to some degree, and we have good cost tracking on. The pavilion structure itself is unique, so we'd really love to have a better number to stick in there. But what we've done for now is base it on some recent ones that we've done, just trying to get you in the right ballpark. Those manufacturers we're finding, much like we found with the shopper dock last year, they're just swamped right now and weren't able to get us timely information, unfortunately. But we feel a decent amount of confidence in sharing these. We wouldn't have sent them to you if we didn't have some confidence in them. These are rounded to the nearest $1,000. Don't read too much into that. It's really more for just kind of gauging one against the other. And what we've come up with is approximately, again, in quotation marks, 263,000 is what we came up with for the band pavilion option. And then the more of a monoslope, kind of that second option, the scaled back version, more of like 181 is what the estimate shows. So that gives you at least ballpark what is the upcharge, I guess it would be, to go from a not really generic, but more of a basic, still very nice, but basic level structure to more of a custom structure that brings in some of those Saugatuck specific aesthetics to it. We also touched on location. Sorry, Aaron, I'm going to make you scroll back up. We were pretty successful, I think, in the last meeting. I think there was pretty good consensus that the north end of the park is the better place for the band shell to go. The restroom building would be removed, and we'd replace the restroom building with some type of new building in the southeast corner there. And then what we do with the gazebo is kind of up in the air. We didn't really come to a consensus there, whether it would stay as more of a historical marker. I think we discussed a little bit, is there a possibility to move it? That I think would prove challenging. So that one's still up in the air, to be determined. It doesn't necessarily impact the cost of the other two items. They're a little bit of an a la carte, I think. So those were the big picture things that we discussed last meeting and kind of where we stand today. The next step forward would be to kind of get a final decision on do we want to do something more custom, or do we want to stay in the realm of things that these manufacturers are cranking out on more of an assembly line basis. Once we have that direction, we can finalize a proposal for you. Probably at your next meeting, we would have that ready for you, and then we can get surveys scheduled, get out there. Our survey crews are spending a lot of time in Saugatuck this fall, so that'll be a pretty easy process, I think. And then we can do design over the winter, get it bid out, and hopefully have it in construction for the majority of next summer. That is about the extent of what I had prepared. We can certainly work backwards and go over any of the other options for the new council members. Welcome aboard to you, and see kind of how we arrived at the two that we've got, or take a second look if you'd like. And any questions are fair game.
I'll open it up to council questions or comments. Those who step right up. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Gar, please.
Go ahead, Garnett.
I've just a general question. Remind me, how much did we set aside in our city budget in addition to the allocated amount that is in this donation? So that was $100,000. What did the city set aside?
Another 80.
Another 80. Okay. So it'd be a total of 180. Okay. I have a couple questions, John, for you. Just having just gone through a big construction project, so I'm curious. I have them side by side. So I have the old pavilion estimate on one side, and then the mono sloped on the other. So on item number 1, I'm just curious. The amount difference is 10,000 on one, and it's 7,000 on another. I'm just curious. There you go. Why? Is it just the scope of the work, or?
Yes, that item we benchmark as a % of construction. That item is included in just about every construction contract we put out there, and that's basically the contractor's costs involved in basically setting foot on site. They have to get bonds and insurances, and all of those things are. The cost for those is largely based on the scale of the project. So that's why we use a percentage when we estimate that item. So the bigger the project is, the bigger this item becomes.
Got it. Okay. And then item number 8, pavilion structure, it's 100,000 on the one and 60 on the other.
Yes, again, I'd love to have a more definitive number in there. If we had, normally I'd love to base that on a quote from some of these manufacturers. This is again based on just what we've seen in the market. This is the cost for purchasing the actual pavilion structure that sets on a concrete foundation that we build custom on site.
Okay. And then item number 9, same question, installation.
That would be the cost of basically putting it together. Most of these come as kind of a tinker toy kit, and then the
Mhm.
contractor has to erect everything on site once the foundation is complete.
Okay. All right.
Okay, John? Or I mean, I'm sorry, Scott, you had some
Yeah,
comments?
thank you, Mayor. Just to start, I'm in complete agreement with the rest of the council, and I believe Mr. Stillman on the new location to the north, and moving the bathroom to the south in location A. So I'm in agreement there. The more I look at it, though, I really want to make sure we as a council do justice to this very generous donation from Mr. Selman. You know, this in many ways is Saugatuck's town square. And I want to make sure we are thinking about doing this right in terms of our contribution as a city. I like the idea of a nod toward the town's history, but I also want to make sure the structure is fit for purpose in terms of, you know, a good venue to put on, you know, musical events and something that, you know, really people can access with decent sight lines. So I'm okay with either the first or the second option. Probably the second option makes more sense because I am a little bit concerned that we have an adequate contingency for this. I worry that things like regrading, any landscaping changes, things outside of our control in terms of delays in the project because of COVID or because of weather, high water, issues we may encounter when we pull out the old bathroom in terms of, you know, regrading. So we deal with some of the low spots in Wicks Park. You know, it's not going to be great if you have concerts where there's a lot of wet spots, you know, which we do see in that park quite frequently after a rain event. So I do believe there's a lot of work to be done. So I would think if we really look at this holistically, I want to make sure we just do justice to this donation, and we really look at making sure the park is appropriately designed, you know, in a holistic way that goes with this this new band shell. I have some worries about the gazebo. Once the new band shell's in location C, people won't be able to see a concert from behind the gazebo. I think people will probably want to sit up in the gazebo and watch a concert. I think that raises issues in terms of what level of occupancy that gazebo can have, and if that will be safe, if people start utilizing it as a viewing platform, if it remains in place. And I just wonder if we do need to bring in either a architect that has some expertise in concert venues, you know, perhaps even a landscape architect that would help integrate this new structure into the landscape of Saugatuck. You know, we have people like, you know, that will be looking at the iconic view of Mount Baldhead. People have always come to the park to sit down and enjoy the boats going by and enjoy the water. So we have a lot of, you know, what is the essence of Saugatuck right here in this park. And I think we want to make sure that when we pull the trigger on this project, that what we end up with is very harmonious with what's going on around the park. So those are my observations. I'm a little bit concerned that we may be a little bit short on the contingency given some of the things we may encounter as we move along. And one final observation, I think, you know, building a new bathroom is going to be a significant project for us. We may want to look into maybe a higher end version of a portable bathroom situation. Many concert venues use leased trailers that have bathrooms on them. They will lease them for an entire season. We may want to look at upgrading from this past year's porta potty option, but we may not be in a position to pull the trigger on an actual bathroom structure this year. So I think that is also something for us to consider in the planning. So, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. I have a couple ideas, I guess, that you sparked, and that was good discussion. Thanks for that. First, Rick Stout is a landscape architect, and unfortunately he wasn't able to be on the call tonight. But these are generated by and large from him. We kind of work as a team on a project like this, where I do the technical stuff and he does the fun stuff. So. In terms of scope of project, I should have pointed out earlier, this is one piece of the puzzle, as Scott mentioned. There's still the bathroom. We've kind of ballparked probably 5,000 to 10,000 to remove the old structure, cap the utilities, things like that. And then the cost of a new bathroom is a huge range. I've done everything from creating a kind of an upscale place to store your porta-johns to, you know, the full-blown restroom building. And that, again, is anywhere from, you know, 10,000 to, you know, you could spend $500,000 on a restroom if you really were so inclined. So that is certainly something that will need to get fleshed out as well. We did look at various temporary installations. I want to say it was maybe last year, or maybe it's been longer than that even, where we did just that. We looked at trailers, we looked at, you know, the permanent housing for temporary facilities. We did a pretty good dive on that, so we could shoot that back out to folks and kind of refresh that discussion too, because yeah, the cost of the facilities is just astronomical in some cases.
Thanks for that. I'm just hearkening back to a community I used to live in that had a dedicated band shell. And what they would do is they would do one of those high-end executive washrooms on a trailer that they would bring for the concert season. And then when winter came, obviously they would pull it out because there wasn't the demand for that facility. And that was an effective solution in that community. So thanks.
Yeah, I've seen variations of that in a lot of communities.
Yeah. And it also helps us with the ADA issue because some of these portable units can be made ADA compliant. So thank you.
John, can I ask John a quick question?
You bet, Lauren.
I didn't notice in the one breakdown, if you had a cost for the ironwork for that wave, did you have a cost breakout for that?
Sort of. That would largely be included in that 60,000.
Okay.
Either 60,000 or some contingency funds, depending on how decorative we wanted to get with that. But and the photo that comes from, you know, is one way that can be done. That look, that aesthetic could be incorporated. You know, it would obviously look a lot different in our setting and where it went and how it was structured, things like that. But we tried to at least accommodate a little bit of that flair, I guess I would call it.
Yeah, I just know that that's something that Jim Selman had mentioned that he liked about that option. So I absolutely agree with him. If we're going to do that, I would like to keep that as part of it because that looks pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. We would definitely look to get that aesthetic somewhere in there, whether it was a railing or, you know, part of the structure or something like that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Chris.
this is a question for John. Do you have any breakdown on how much square footage there is between the two and how much would be covered and how much would be open?
We focused on, let me see, I think it was like a 30 by 25. It's on that left sketch there, but it's too small for me to read. But I think
Yeah,
it was roughly 30 by 25, and the size was consistent between the options we looked at. So one isn't necessarily bigger than the other at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other council members want to make a comment?
I would, Mayor. Mayor, may I?
You bet. You're all set.
Thanks for coming. To pick up on Lauren's point, we also have some fantastic welders and sign makers at the high school that help us with signage. So that might be something that we could incorporate. When obviously when the kids are back and doing that work. So keep that in mind. And also, I just wanted to make a note. I was disappointed that there was an $80,000 difference between the two designs. I'm assuming that the barrel roof is probably more expensive, more custom, as you say. I'm assuming that's where the price difference is. But I just wanted to make a note in terms of materials. I just want to make sure that we're remembering that we have these wood Victorian buildings, you know, and we're not going crazy with fake stone. There's nothing in town that's made out of stones, or we're not in the Pacific Northwest. So I just would like to keep our finishes in mind. I think wood keeps the charm and the feel of nearby historical structures. I also like the modern monoslope roof because I think it also picks up on Ship and Shore and the Mermaid Baldy's Copper Craft building. It would look fine as well. And I agree with Scott that this is a very iconic spot. This is a classic Saugatuck place, and you know, the finishes will be important and the design will be important. That's it.
Yeah, just finally, I'll just jump on that. The more I think about it, I think I am becoming more and more interested in the monoslope, the lower cost option, because I think it is cleaner, simpler, and then doesn't take away from the beauty of that spot to start with. It's more, in many ways, deferential to everything around it because it's not trying to be something that it's not. It's just a simple, clean venue for people to enjoy a night out with their friends and family, you know, listening to music. So I think I'm leaning more toward the monoslope.
Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Ken?
Yeah, along those lines, John, can you comment on whether there's any difference in terms of long-term maintenance between these structures? In other words, will one of them cost significantly more than the other for us to maintain over the life of this construction?
Yeah, that's always a good point. The custom structure is going to have a little more maintenance over its life just because a lot of the pieces and parts, if you have to replace something, is also going to have to be custom. Beyond that, a lot of the materials I would imagine being very similar, depending on what option we went with. And to Holly's point, for sure, what we would normally do for something like this that has a lot more art than engineering in it is maybe have a design committee working with us and kind of working alongside us to refine some of those things. But yeah, maintenance I think is going to be slightly higher. I wouldn't say it's double or anything like that, but a custom structure is going to have a higher maintenance cost over time. The other point I liked on the local welders, I've noticed tons of local art in the community, so that would be a cool thing to do, and it frankly would save costs too. So that's a great idea, great point.
Thanks.
Okay, any other comments? I'll make a few of my own. First of all, at the last meeting, we kind of put this together as 3 or 4 actually different projects, so we need to keep that in mind. One is construction of the new gazebo. 2 was a demolition of the bathroom. 3 was the relocation and rebuild of a bathroom or other restroom facility. And 4 is what the plans are for the gazebo. So all of those are going to have their own pricing component. So I think that we're going to have to get Peter involved with this and really kind of, I think, get with us regarding financing. The Scott's idea on a portable restroom isn't anything new. It's something that I have been in favor of for many years. Attending a lot of sporting events is where you really see these high quality restrooms. They come heated, they come air conditioned, and they can be quite luxurious and very large size. I actually like the idea. And I think maybe that's something we can enter into discussion down. The other great aspect about them is their portability. Those you could move to Coughlin Park. You can move them to Oval Beach. You can just move them. You could also rent them out to other communities if, if necessary, or if that was an interest to recoup some of your investment. So I think that's part of the discussion. There's a reason why we don't have bathrooms in other parts of the community. It's because of the cost. And I think every time we looked at it, we were looking at $150,000. It's easy enough to get there, and that's pretty basic by the time you run the infrastructure to them. So cost regarding the restroom, we may just decide to leave the one there for the year. I don't know, but the portable restrooms, the decent size ones, I think are certainly worth considering. You could, I'm sure you could purchase it for the difference between the two projects. Actually, I think I was looking at them. We were looking at about $60,000, I think, for a decent size one. So that being said, I have no particular preference on either of the two designs. Being budget conscious, I kind of am looking at the single roof, flat roof option. Regarding design, we also keep in mind that this is in the historic district, so our historic committee is going to have to take a look at this. Just because we're the city, we can't do an end run around the historic commission. So they're going to be part of the design process also. So that being said, I don't know, do we have enough information to make a motion and a move Monday? Do you want to have another discussion go around at the next workshop and include Peter from a funding standpoint? Or what are some of the council preferences regarding that? Anybody chime in?
Mr.
Yes,
Mayor?
Chris.
You and I have always had our opinions on restrooms, and I think it would be sad if we just had porta potties there. I think Scott's idea is fascinating, but any grandparent who's ever tried to take a 4-year-old into a porta potty knows that it's just ridiculous. And there's a lot of little kids that go to the music in the park. Cost-wise, I think the wavy one is lovely. I think that Holly's idea of local welders, I mean, that could be something that we carry on throughout the park. I do think of the restroom that's there now is also iconic, and I hate to see it go, and I hate to see the gazebo go, but I think that trying to save the gazebo there's not going to be enough room for people, and it's always going to be a detriment to listening to the music. And we've gone through so many problems with the water on the one we have now. So I strongly agree to put the restrooms in the southeast part and do the wave in the northwest part, and looking at a cost analysis of how to do a restroom.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Ken.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we need to look at this as a total picture. And the restroom is going to have to be relocated if we put the band shell where we all prefer it to be. And I agree that's the best location for the band shell. We also have to take into account what we're going to do with the gazebo. You know, there are people in Saugatuck who believe that's an iconic part of our community. The setting on the river there with that gazebo in the middle is really important to people. I'm not sure where I end up on that. I'd love to see it move someplace. I'm not sure where one would do that, but I think all three elements need to be considered, that we shouldn't be looking at this as each individually, because wherever we put the band shell is going to impact on where we put the bathrooms and where we're going to put what we're going to do with the gazebo. So to get the whole picture, I think we also need some planning about the gazebo, in addition to what Chris just proposed.
Mr. Mayor, this is Garn.
Yes, Garnett.
So I see it like you do in three parts. I don't think that any of the other parts should hold up the basic first one, which is per the agreement with Jim Selman to get a decision made on the gazebo, the design, and get that process going. We can kind of do all of the above, but at least get that started. I am very much in support of the mono sloped roof from a cost perspective, and think we should move ahead with that. And then as that gets going, we can probably at a next workshop discuss either the demolition of a bathroom, the options for bathrooms, and the options for the old band shell. So my support is to go ahead and get going with the mono sloped roof design. And then at the next workshop, delve into the others and have Pete give us some
Okay.
cost info.
Along those lines, Jim Selman has, in working with priorities coming up, which we'll be addressing here in the next month, 6 weeks. So we have some goals that we need to share with our incoming city manager. But along those priorities, Jim has put some pretty, in my mind, he has said he wants to see something by the summer of 2021. So I think we have to concentrate on the band shell and then work on the other pieces of the of park, the other items. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, but we're not going to get them all done by the summer of 2021. So I just wanted to bring that up from a priority stand. So anybody else want to comment, or we can kind of visualize how we want to do this? It sounds to me that we can make a design decision Monday night, and check that one off our list. Then possibly we can ask John to put some options together on restrooms, if not for the next workshop, but maybe within the next 30 to 60 days. And at that time, we can also piggyback, I think, a discussion about the gazebo onto that. It might be a year or two before we have the capacity to deal with the gazebo, unless we decide to demolish it, which is going to have to get some buy-in from the public, I'm afraid. So does that sound like a plan to everybody? I don't think we need to make any motions on that. We just kind of go in that direction for Monday night.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Mayor. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I just want one comment. I like what you've just said, and in many ways, now looking at the map in front of us, it almost sounds like the council might be prepared to make, a motion and to act on sort of the north side of the park, the structure, and see a decision to demolish the existing restroom, which sort of gets in the way of what's going to be built in C. And then we can tackle the problem of the gazebo and a permanent or a temporary or some type of alternative restroom situation at a later date. Am I capturing kind of what your thinking is there? Kind of a
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's get the design out of the way, so John can initiate his planning. These projects always run into roadblocks. You got contractor issues, you're going to have COVID issues. And so I think we really need to have a good faith effort to show Jim Selman that we're working diligently towards complying with his desires. Knowing Jim, he's a real gentleman. I'm sure if he sees some positive progress, he'll work with us on it. But I think that's a pretty, I think, high priority, should be a high priority on our list. So anybody else? Chris, comments?
This is for John. John, when you're looking at, it sounds like we're kind of all in agreement about the location of the bandstand. In trying to lay out, as Scott has brought up, the water issues with the restroom right there. I'm assuming when you would go forward with the plan, making a decision about that restroom or not is going to have to be made in order to look at, leveling and working with the water issue.
Yeah,
Would
that
one
that
tie
was
into the
kind
other?
of what I was hearing, and I think it's a good idea. If Monday night you can take action on one, direction for the band shell, and two, confirming removal of the restroom building. I think they kind of go hand in hand, just from an access perspective and fixing the drainage issues and everything else.
I
Those
agree.
would be
Thank
good
you.
to do together.
Thanks.
You could look at it this way, if we remove the restroom this winter, the pressure will be on us to replace it with something for the summer. So I guess that's one positive about it.
And also, to Scott's point, the restroom lends itself to a temporary solution too. So you're not quite as under the gun to make a
Yes,
decision
yeah,
on.
I
You
think
could
that
get through
that's,
next year with something.
that certainly is something we would probably have to lean toward, just because of the timing and what it takes to put together construction project. I do think that if we end up building a new restroom, it's going to alleviate a lot of the water issues that the old restroom has, because that old restroom was not designed as a restroom. That thing was a small art gallery back in the 60s. So it was just and then it was a storage building. So it was just kind of retrofitted for a bathroom, just because someone did the nice painting on that, and we had to keep it. We could get some blowback on eliminating that artwork also on there. So keep that in mind, because that's come up before.
Well,
Yeah.
We've got to wrap this up. Holly, you got one more quick comment?
I was gonna say, I mean, maybe that's something we can continue on. That artwork is so fun. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we can go forward with that. We could,
Certainly.
Well,
that could live on possibly.
Yeah.
final comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were able to preserve elements of the Berlin Wall concrete. Sure, if we wanted to, we could find a way to preserve some of the artwork on the bathroom.
All right, so let's kind of move on. Karen, you got that for our agenda for Monday night? All right, I am assuming you're saying yes. Can't hear you. So let's move on to item 5B, and that's still John. Unless Karen wants to comment on that too, I think. Let me see here.
We can go right into John.
Okay, thank you. So we move along. John?
Yeah, again, looking backwards, we discussed the Park Street study 2 months now, it has been. And we came up with a variety of options, associated costs, things like that. And the direction we got coming out of that meeting was we would like to have the actual survey, so we would know where some of these improvements are going to potentially encroach on private property. The direction was to wait until the leaves fell and hopefully beat the snow, and that's kind of where we are today. Right now, we tentatively have survey scheduled for the week of November 30. And as this was getting scheduled, we were approached by this national survey publication that's trying to spotlight survey in Michigan. They're kind of going state to state, as I understand it. And so we kind of looked through the projects we had on the books and thought Park Street was kind of a unique one in terms of topography and kind of where it is along the lake shore is really cool. So we thought it would be neat if that got spotlighted, but obviously wanted your blessing before we would do anything like that. And I think there's been some good discussion already in terms of, making sure the public is aware. We're not surveying to do any design at this point. We're just surveying to gather more information for our study phase.
So what effect would COVID have on this potential project, the magazine portion of this project?
Our surveyors have been going pretty much nonstop since COVID started. They work outdoors. They fell under the one of the exemptions for essential services for the governor's order under public infrastructure work. So from that standpoint, it's not necessarily going to affect us. That could change on a dime, but as things stand today, don't foresee anything changing our direction there.
Would have any impact on the participation of the magazine folks?
Unless there's some kind of a travel hindrance, that would be the only thing that I could think of might change their plans.
Okay. That being said, does council have any objections to allowing this or any comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr.
Chris?
congratulations, John. I think it's a great idea.
Mr. Mayor,
Right.
likewise, this is Garn. Fully support it.
All right.
Mayor,
Scott?
yeah, also support, I think anything to increase transparency and visibility of this project is a good idea. So I'm all for it.
Right. Okay.
Right.
That being said, think
I agree as well.
Ken?
Yes, I agree as well.
Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Holly?
Yes.
Lauren, have any comments? Support, Lauren?
My only comment is that it looks like the project calls for some more community input, and to highlight that, I think would be very helpful. And I'm excited about it, so I'm in.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it's just a unique location and I think it'd be great. So reading through some of these articles, it'll make an interesting article to say the least. So I'm all in favor of it. I don't think it hurts anybody.
Mr.
Okay,
Mayor?
yes.
We have a press release almost ready to go to start getting the word out. So just waiting for council approval to
Well, do you
approve it.
see this as an action item Monday night, or can you just go forward based on just no opposition from, I mean, it is public land. We don't approve every time someone wants to do a photo shoot at Oval Beach or something. So I'm just kind of curious to see how that differs from something like that.
Yeah, there does not need to be any formal action, so we can just get going.
Okay, all right, there you go, John, you got your answer.
Great. Two last points. Karen, we're working to confirm that we're 100% with the magazine. So we'll give you the nod once we know that, so you can do your press release. And then Ms. Underwood's point on the traffic counts, we have a handful of points in time. We have a few days here and a few days there. I don't have traffic counts for the entire season. I believe the equipment that you have out there is capable of being downloaded, and they can pull that. The police department can pull that. Karen, you might want to just connect with them and see what information they can provide from those.
Okay.
So, John, Mayor,
Yes,
so John, when you did the park non-motorized study, you said 1,800 cars per day, and that was measured in June and July. Did you measure that, or was that taken from police data, Allegan County police data, or did you actually measure traffic?
For June and July, I believe we pulled the police data. We've done our own counts in the Park Street corridor in a number of different cases, and it was generally in line with what we had seen. But I believe that specific count was from the police department.
Okay, because I know, Karen, I know that Brett gave us, they did do a count. I'd like to get that. I'd like to see that. I know Jane wants to see it, but in addition to any data that we could get from the machines would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
all right. Thanks, John, for attending our meeting and the useful information.
You're not done with me yet. I'll be around
Okay.
for Campbell.
Oh, yeah, okay. So next item, John Vanderbeek, are you out there, John? Can you join us regarding the Tri-Community Trail Master Plan?
John, I'm going to go ahead and start my share. You should be a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'm John Vanderbeek, a longtime resident here in Saugatuck. Nice to see you as mayor, Mark. Congrats. Nice to see all you other new faces, a couple new faces up there. Some of which, half of you I think I know. Other people are just meeting me now for the first time. Nice to meet you guys. Lots of Johns today. But I'm presenting something that we're calling the Tri-Community Trail Master Plan. And it's really essentially adding conservation, preservation, and recreation to our area as a sort of offset to the heavy development that's happening now and for the next couple decades. What we anticipate is a lot more development. I'm focused, my Trail Master Plan is focused on the tri-community. So I'm going to try to present to you the whole plan, and then we'll spend most of the time focusing on what matters for downtown Saugatuck. So I'll start with, let me get some images up here. You guys have probably seen some of the images. 1 second, let me see if I could figure this screen sharing out. And okay. Now, if somebody could confirm to me what you're looking at, which image, it's not straightforward on my screen here. Do you guys see a number of green stars on the screen?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, so this is what I did is I started studying the parcel maps of all the wooded lots that are still left that are of significant acreage, that are mostly wooded, perhaps undeveloped at all. And I started to look at all the destination points, the many destination points and places you can hike and see a view and so forth in our area. So when you see all these stars, I wrote this map up so we can look at, can we connect some of them? So ideally we can try to buy up all kinds of conservation and get 20 acres here, 20 acres there, but it costs a very big sum of money to do such a thing. So the TriMaster Trail Plan is really just a plan of low-hanging fruit. What can we do that's more easily done without just buying up a whole 20-acre plot of land? Can we just get a trail easement that connects a point A destination to a point B destination? And we've done just that this year, having started this effort last year, and we're already closing our first deals with some spaces that I can't disclose publicly yet because they're in progress, and I don't want people to walk through these trails before they're open to the public. But when we go to the next page here, if you could confirm you're seeing 1 through 11 here with white trail maps.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so here's an effort to take these destination points and try to connect them. So I'll just go through these numbers very quickly. This is just a beginning sort of first sketch of the trail master plan. And it's a generational plan. So there's a lot of stuff going on down there by the river to the very east that's not even on here yet. But to start, there's some assets that we already have as a city that aren't fully utilized. Everybody's familiar with the Oxbow hike where you have the crow's nest view. I think a lot of people here are hikers and they've hiked and they see this beautiful view, the crow's nest. And I think other people are aware that recently with the awesome work of local conservationists, the Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area to the north of Oval Beach was preserved a few years back, and you can walk all the way to the river from there. So number one takes 2 dead-end trails and connects them and creates an Oxbow loop, which would open up the public to this beautiful marshy area to the north of the Oxbow area where the art community is. And you would be able to walk over the northern part of the Oxbow. Now the Oxbow, this whole area, Talmadge Woods, as you guys know in the city, Talmadge Woods and the Harbor Natural Area are both protected under Land Conservancy of West Michigan. And I spoke to April Schultz over there about this idea, and she said it's consistent with the type of things they would do. So in other words, it's an idea that if the city of Saugatuck took interest in this and we had some spearheaders that did this, then we can start to look at this and what it would take to make such things happen and bring April and the Land Conservancy in on the conversation. Right now, I just brought it up casually. She in no way said that she wants to do it. She said that she likes the idea and their organization would do something like that. So that's number one. I think it could be a really great asset that we already have. And I'm not inventing something new here. I'm just merely shining the proverbial light to the end of the dark tunnel to show, look at what we can do with what we already have. Number two on this list, you see on the red section in the peninsula area, you have Campbell Street. Mark's very familiar with that area over there. And there's, for the first time, there's a 16-acre parcel of land for sale up there. Now, I noticed that last year that there's 30 acres left over there. We will never have 30 acres of dune land in peninsula ever again. And I'm not against development. The Trail Master Plan is not against development. We're not, you know, attacking people that are already developing. What we're trying to do is prevent, either prevent development or develop in the right way. So we're working with some developers in the area where they're creating public accessible trails. And number two is one of these areas where I'll show you a detail of this. This is a property owned by Catherine Page, and it's for sale now. And we put together a conservation packet, and 75% of the would-be buyers are completely interested in this proposal to have a public trail. And that public trail, it's kind of related to what you're talking about with Park Street, because there's not a lot of ways to get up into Bald Head and Oval Beach. But if you were at Campbell Street, or say you're in Douglas and you took the Wade's Bayou to Douglas Beach Trail, and you say wanted to take a right up Park, well, you can walk through the woods at Campbell and get to Mount Bald Head and Oval Beach. There's a lot of woods to the south of Perryman that can connect to Campbell, giving our tourists and our people, our residents, more ways to get to the really cool spots north of Perryman. And there's just 2 private properties between Campbell and there. And we're talking with the landowners, and we're looking into that as an exploration. Number 3, I've been talking to Dave Barker about the development that most of you probably know about going on in Douglas behind the Hayworth building. And he already has public trail access, publicly accessed trails in plan over there. And I think number 3 isn't so much something I'm getting directly involved with. You guys are already starting a conversation. Dave Barker's already doing some public trail ideas. And I think that all of us will someday see a connection between Douglas and Oval Beach where you can walk on a sidewalk and maybe not get hit by a car. So that's number 3. Number 4, I'll skip through this a little bit faster because I do realize you guys are the city of Saugatuck and not the township, but yet in the effort to bring us together, I've not only brought in some people that are in township government, but from Douglas as well. And some of the volunteers in the Tri-Community Trail Master Plan are all here on this phone call. So this is a tri-community effort right here, right now. Number 4, there's a trail already there that connects over behind Eiley's all the way to State Park. I don't know if you guys knew that, but if you parked at Eiley's, not that you have permission, but if there was a parking lot there someday where the North Shore Properties eastern boundary is, along where the Linus or the Dune Grass or the Dune Rides property is, right around there's a trail that connects to State Park. It's about a 5-mile walk to Felt Mansion. It's one of the most beautiful hikes I've ever done, having gotten permission from them to be able to walk through there. That's not a public trail, but it's something we're working on actively. I'm going to skip through like 5, 6, and 7 to just summarize this as there are trail opportunities in that part of Saugatuck. In Saugatuck Township that we're actively pursuing. There's several landowners in that area of green that are working with us with the idea of making, say, a 50-foot trail easement that connects a point A to point B, especially from number 6 going up along the highway. I see the future of protecting the highway's feature of having woods every time somebody drives to come to Saugatuck, they see woods along that highway. We can protect that with very little cost to the would-be sellers of those lands, because who wants to really build right up against the highway anyway? Having a 50-foot chunk of woods that you can also hike through, I think is a beautiful asset to our community. And that's already started, and we have our first easements in place for that. I'm skipping over the highway now to number 8 and up to 9. So 8 is really continuing the highway loop idea. We're just now starting that. I only have a couple of landowners on the phone with that one. But it does cut through municipality property in two areas, some township, some county, as some of you may be aware. The old dump site used to be there right under number 9. That's the old Saugatuck dump, if some of you might be familiar. Number 9 is the dog park. So we're calling this part I have a close-up of this map. This is called the proposed Silver Creek Trail. And see, the township already owns over 50 acres here. Do you see my mouse moving around this image, guys?
Mhm.
Okay, so this is the
bit.
dog park. The dog park only occupies this, the public only is allowed to be right about here, right where the actual words dog park is. And they can't venture into the rest of the property. The township planning commission, parks commission, and the body of government there is interested in working with me and my volunteers to create a trail that goes through there and utilizes that property. And they've adopted a resolution actually to have me explore that. And I've explored it, and you can see in that map, that's an actual trail that's already there. The only part we have to add is the part in the green that's highlighted with an orange circle. What's awesome about these two properties, the old airport across 63rd Street is 170 acres that the city of Saugatuck bought in, I think, 36 for 12 grand. And it connects to this by this little lot that's only 80 feet wide. And so this is actually practical to connect a township with a city property and really show everybody how we can work together. For one, I think it's a good coming together story, but it's also a story of utilizing property that hasn't been really utilized. Quick history, I'm sure a lot of you already know. Property was bought in 36. It was an airport for a very short period of time. I think it was considered a failed airport at the time. There was a lot of people upset about spending that money. But then it turned into a drag strip, and then it turned into a snowmobile club in 76, I think. And the snowmobile club actually carved those trails that you see that I drew in blue with the creek ravine lookouts. And if you've looked at your packet, you'll see those pictures I took from those lookout views. This is a beautiful geography that's up to par, I think, with the Mount Baldhead area and Saugatuck State Park, because you hear a babbling creek. You don't even have creeks over in the dunes because the water just seeps right through the sand. So this airport property is beautiful. They've already made the trails. They're already there. And better yet, if you follow the map south, you have Wade's Memorial Preserve that's owned by and operated by the Michigan Nature Association. And I should just mention that my Trail Master Plan has brought me into conversations with many of you government officials, but also I've developed a pretty good relationship with the Outdoor Discovery Center, who's heading up the Lower Kalamazoo Greenway Plan, which is exactly this. We're following something that the state set out. We're following something that the master plan of our tri-community already set out, chapter 8, if you've read it. And Wade's Memorial Preserve is really open to the idea of us connecting one place to another. And if you look at, there's only 2 private properties in this orange circle. There's really a few different ways to do this. This is just one way. That part of this plan is we come up with contingent ideas because not every private property owner wants to work with us. But I just sat down with with Christine Swartz over there on that Wade Memorial border. and she knows the lay of the land, and she helped me figure out a better route. So this is actually updated now since I made this map. And so this could be a wonderful asset to our community, creating over a two-mile hike if you're going from point A to point B, but miles and miles of hiking that is essentially the same idea of having 500 acres. How many acres is north of Perryman? It's 425 acres that the city owns. And this is about the same. Even though you wouldn't have to own all this land, I'm not proposing we even open up the airport property as a park either, because it's not really necessary to cause too much expense. People have promoted the idea of making a bike path or mountain biking club or something there. 5 years ago, there was a proposal that some of you might remember. Mark, maybe you remember that. And I could show you an image, but I'm glad the city of Saugatuck turned it down, because it was very invasive, very effective of this natural area. In other words, they had trails cutting through every nook and cranny of that whole property, and it would have affected it forever. And all we're proposing is footpaths, not bike paths, not horse paths, just simple footpaths that are well marked. And so that's the trail master plan as it relates to the creek, Silver Creek. And if I could just go back to this peninsula. So this is where I started studying parcels. I just want to show you the backdrop of where I'm coming from, why I'm putting so much effort into trying to make trail easements, conservations, and preservations. I was confused as to which trails I was allowed to walk through. So if you look at this map, you can see everything outlined in red, and I'm happy to share this with you if somebody wants to email me. Everything outlined in red is city property. Everything outlined in blue is somebody else's property. So part of this trail master plan would be actually to understand that. And if you look here do you see the lighthouse property? There's about 5 acres, and you see all the trails have to go to the beach. The black trails are the ones that exist. Anybody that have walked all the way to the river channel, you're not really supposed to walk the top of the ridge. So part of this plan is to let's see if we could get in touch with this family and see if they would be willing to have a fenced easement through their property, so when the beaches are rough and the waters are high, you can still walk through. The Dean family is pretty good about, they're not really putting gates up. They let people walk through. But I think for the future, for a generational look at this, there needs to be a walkway through that property in the long term. And then as you move up, you can see I have a couple bridges as I'm circling with my mouse. To make this Oxbow loop happen, the trail already goes down the hill over here from the Crow's Nest. So you can get down here, and you guys have been to the cove over here. Once you get over there, you can walk over into the whole trail system that the Land Conservancy worked up years ago with Phil Miller's effort and such. But this is the most daunting part. Building a bridge over the swamp area, it's 150 yards. Now I talked to dock builders around here that say there's no current going through there. It's only 3 feet deep. It'd probably be $100,000. It's a daunting project, but it's something that I think that would make a lot of sense in the future. If it happens now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, that's what the Trail Master Plan is. When I approach a landowner, I don't just ask them to give their land away. I ask them how much they'd be willing to sell it, or would they sell us some, or would they let us connect point A to point B? And so, you know, what we're looking for is a generational commitment to this. And that means if somebody says, gee, I don't want anybody hiking through here, well, what about in your will, or 20 years from now, or 30 years from now? So that's the introduction into the Trail Master Plan. What we're doing in township so far is I've met with a lot of the officials, the Planning Commission. We're trying to plant the seeds where there might not be enforcement measures for saving trees and saving forests. we can at least plant seeds, and I'm planting that seed with you guys now. Whoever has influence, like Cindy Osmond with your influence with the planning, you know, if we could just keep an eye out on these things. For example, you guys are all familiar with the Vine Street development, where they've just started building a road. At the end of that road, all the people over on Vine Street off Park Street, they walk down Frederick Street to get to Bald Head Woods because it connects. There's a trail at that dead end. So here's an example of how it's really important for you guys to keep an eye out for things that we won't ever be able to do again once the development's already done. And I talked to Brad Rothschafer over there, and I said, gee, you know, you really should have a trail easement in your last 2 lots that are in that development, because all your people over there, they're just going to walk at the end of Frederick to get to the trail, the beach trail that I'm sure you guys are familiar with. You know, people put a lot of work into making that beach trail happen and working with the dune grass development and stuff. And so, you know, what I think what I'll end up with is Brad, I think, will work with me and I think he'll probably put an easement in there. But when he was getting approval from the town, it's not like you require an easement, but perhaps next time in a development similar to this and an analog similar to this, you can say, gee, I'll bet you could connect if you just made an easement through there to another asset to the community. So, I mean, that's what it's all about. I hope it makes sense to you guys. I do want to just mention the Lower Kalamazoo River Greenway Plan, which you guys did adopt, and so did the township. And all I'm doing is a boots on the ground approach to trying to make this happen. It's about making natural corridors. I would rather people be able to walk through the corridors, but I'm working with some people trying to just get private conservations going too, working with my partners, the Outdoor Discovery Center, the Michigan Nature Association, and the Land Conservancy of West Michigan, and then municipalities like you. So thanks everybody for listening. I want to give a special thanks to some recent volunteers that joined my effort, and they're helping me with the infrastructure that I'm using to try to bring in more volunteers and create a Friends of Trails Master Plan group so everybody can sort of get involved. But Betsy, York, and Chris, I thank you so much for your help. It's so valuable. So anyway, that's it. I was hoping that maybe somebody would have a couple questions, because I've done a lot of studies on this. I might have talked over something too fast about certain geographic areas that you're not familiar with. So I'm here to answer anything that maybe I breezed over too fast. But mainly, I do want to leave the point of, it's my personal goal to open up the trails at the airport property by next summer due to the constant pressure we're having with COVID and overuse of trails. We have an answer right in front of us. I've got the volunteer crew. It won't cost anything. I'll cover all the overhead, etc. There you go.
Okay, John, very familiar with all the spots and trails and land acquisitions, et cetera, that you've gone over. We do have a pretty busy agenda here. There's a lot here to wrap our arms around. And I really think something like this, I've got half a dozen questions about, regarding organization and things like that. I really think to do something fair, we need a separate workshop, maybe scheduled on an off week, and just discuss this particular issue. We don't want to rush through something like this, yet, it's something that I think parts of it are, I don't want to say simple to implement, but it can be done in a reasonable time frame for city government, which is open to interpretation, I guess. So how does council feel about that? I'd like to move on, actually, and study this on our own, have time to get questions, and bring John in on some snowy day when we're still doing Zoom and we don't have anything else to do.
Mayor, I think that's great.
Okay.
I second that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I'd really like to thank John for bringing this briefing forward. And the work that you're doing is just fantastic. I'm not sure we were all aware of all the activity going on, but you're to be commended. So I totally support having a workshop where we can delve into this further.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
Agree.
I'm also, John, is open to individual questions from council people. There's nothing that's saying we cannot contact John on the project and ask him specific questions. We're not making any city policies, don't make any city
Yeah.
promises.
Mhm.
One person.
In fact, I can do, not to interrupt you, but I can do a lot of this, and I have already done this without municipality support at all, because all you need is a private landowner and the conservation 501c. So, yeah. So,
Yep. Okay. Well, again, thanks, John, for your efforts, and we'll be in touch here. Not too
thanks
distant
for your
future.
interest. I really
You bet.
appreciate
You bet.
the openness to the ideas. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Okay. Next item is a tri-community recycling survey. Garnett, you get to
Yeah,
follow.
Sure, I've got about an hour presentation if y'all are ready. So just kidding.
Right, then moving on to the next item.
Yeah, so basically it's pretty straightforward. You all have gotten the draft summary, so I won't reiterate that. I know Barry's still on the line, and I want to extend my thanks to his participation in this committee. And Linda Escott is the other city representative on that committee. The group has been working pretty fast and furious since, I don't know, when was it, April or something when we got going. But basically the results of the survey basically showed us what I think we already knew, but now we have the data to support that and substantiate that. So, my recommendations to council are a couple. I have a couple of requests. First, our charge, if you will, is to expire or to be done by the end of December. And quite frankly, we've really just begun. So my request would be to extend the charge of the committee another year, so that we can begin to implement several of the suggestions that we have there on page 2, which is primarily all focused around education. As you know, I've tried to make this as cost effective as possible, and to date, it hasn't cost us anybody a penny in any municipality, and it's my hope to continue to do that with some help of Ken Freestone up in Holland. We have some opportunities that are beginning to present themselves to be supported financially with the Recycling Project, which is a national organization to help us with some educational materials. We have a Zoom meeting with Jack Brown on Monday afternoon to talk specifically about these results and hopefully get some support from Republic Services for some education around recycling. If you will, that would be my big request, is that you allow the committee, that we basically extend the charge of the committee for another year and give folks an opportunity who are on the committee to either continue their involvement or allow us to put some new members on there. So with that, I'll stop and I'll open it up for questions. I think it was pretty straightforward. How's that?
Good. Garnett, what's the end date on the current committee,
December 31st of this year.
All right. So that gives us time to put some actionable item together for our next meeting.
Yeah,
Unless
absolutely.
there's and I think we ought to just go with Garnett's recommendation to continue it for the next year. It also gives us time to check with the other participants to see if they're still members, to see if they're still interested. Does that sound like a game plan to everybody?
Works for me.
Yeah. Okay. Karen, is that doable on your end?
It will be tight to get it on Mondays, but I can
No,
for
I meant
sure.
at our next before the end of the year. So we have
Yes,
in
yes,
December that we can act on this. So
yes.
that gets some time to fit it into your schedule.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Good.
So that's what we'll do. So
Cool.
let's move on to the Water Street and Lucy Street intersection. Karen?
We've had some complaints about that corner. It's ugly. And we attempted to cover it up at one point, and We affectionately call it the Great White Wall, which came down immediately. Scott's on the line. I think he's ready to discuss it.
Scott, you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Karen.
Yeah, how you feeling, man?
I'm fortunate. I'm better than most people that I think that have had COVID. So I'm skating through just fine.
All
Looking
right, well,
forward to getting back to work.
We're all wishing you the best.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, thanks Karen for leading that off. There was some conversation about, should the city be doing something to improve the appearance? Maybe not. I consulted with Mark Klungel and called John Sherrar this morning just to kind of get their input before having this conversation. And I think John, Mark, and I are all kind of in agreement overall. We're really thrilled with the way that for the cost, how that the pumping system is operating. I think it's operating better than we hoped it would. There are some cosmetic issues with it, but from a DPW maintenance standpoint, maintenance wise, you kind of expect that with a construction site, which is what I consider this to be. But just kind of opening this topic up for discussion formally in front of the council. If there's people that feel strongly, that some money can be spent to make it look better, then now's the time to do that. But from going into winter, the biggest thing that I'm looking for is maybe to install we have some concrete barrier blocks up at the garage. They're 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. I'd like to at least put one of those, 1 or 2 of them in front of that, where the pumps are, where the PVC is coming out of the street, just to kind of protect that from snow plowing. Given it being winter time, I can't imagine that being too much of an issue. Other than that, I think I could, take any requests that maybe Mark and John have, maybe even work with John Moxie and get some ideas of some incremental improvements that we could do. I'm against the idea of a full-blown fence in front of that. I think the feedback that we got from the Great White Wall was consistent with that as well. For us to maintain that intersection and to keep it fairly tidy as it can be, that's just an obstacle in the way. So that's what I have to offer. Again, I'd like to at least install that concrete block in front of that pump. But if anyone else would like to add some comments, Lauren, maybe you do.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
thank you so much. I appreciate all your efforts on this. I guess some of my questions are over to the north of that is where you have all of the sandbags. I assume you're not going to be plowing from the sandbags all the way to the gangplank right there. So I feel like if we had some sort of a barrier, but a short barrier, not a full wall, that could keep it, because I assume you're not wanting people to park in that area, and we still have to designate that in some way. But do we have to have all the orange barrels and the orange fencing? Is there a way that we can redo the sandbags in a way so it looks neater? And then, like you said, maybe some of those cement barriers. How tall would you say those cement barriers are, Scott? Are they like 2 feet tall or 3 feet tall?
Yeah, you're exactly right. They're 4 feet long by 2 feet by 2 feet. I think that we have about 15 of them up at the garage not being used at the moment. So, but yeah, I think that it wouldn't be very tall at all. We just want to maybe, to get rid of some of the other construction materials, at least put some sort of reflectors on those concrete barriers. But yeah, you're right. We're not trying to snow plow up all the way to the curb in that area. There's just too many areas that we have sandbags piled to stop the water or slow the water from coming in. So I think that, we're not really exactly sure how the pumps are going to operate this winter with freezing. Last winter, it was just kind of a mess. And so I think it's best just to, if we did have some concrete blocks with some reflectors for traffic control, that would that would at least keep the icy hazardous conditions from being accessible.
And Scott, just one more question. The grate that's over top of the big hole in the road, is there any way we can modify that so it actually is flush with the road? Or is that?
Yeah, I think that could easily be done. You may know a metal fabricator, maybe Harrington's or Shishagways that could possibly do that, or the guy that fabricated it. But you're still going to have that PVC coming up out of the ground. So even if you do something with that cover, which we can totally do, you're still going to have to block that portion of things off.
Yeah, I'm just thinking safety wise, it just looks a little scary. But yeah, as long as we could get some of those cement blocks and then maybe we can just help and just clean it up in some way to make it look nicer, that would be great. Do we have to have any of the orange things as long as we have reflectors on the cement blocks? That we could get rid of the orange barrels is what you're saying if we had reflectors on the cement blocks.
Well, as a general rule of thumb, we want to make it as visible as possible. But in this case, we're not exactly doing this by the book. So I think as long as we had those concrete barriers with some reflectors on there, I would imagine we could remove a lot of that stuff. John, Moxie, if you want to add to that, feel free if you're in agreement with me or if you disagree.
Yeah, I guess my only thought would then be the backside, just making sure we're keeping people out of there so they don't come in conflict with any of those potential hazards. If we have a way to do that.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, yes, Chris.
This is for Scott. Scott, do you need, I'm in agreement with Lauren on all of this, and going just even a little further north, do we need those sandbags that are there to maintain those throughout the winter? And
Yeah,
go around the curve?
The sandbags that are there are meant to slow the rate that the water leaks or seeps onto the street. So they are for a purpose. I know they're really unsightly. I did have a possible idea we could look into. Instead of having a pile of bags that get ripped open, they have what they call bulk bags, which are like 36 by 36 inch by 40 inch. So basically eliminating the pile of sandbags that get torn to pieces and putting one giant one over the top of it. That's a possibility. It might make a difference in appearance.
And then could we get rid of, I'm just looking at the picture, get rid of the leaves that are there too with pickup? And maybe they're gone already. Maybe they're already gone.
But we do try to make a routine effort to keep that area as clean as possible. It's in the best interest of the pumps to do so.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor?
Yes.
This
Holly, go ahead.
Scott, I'm wondering if we can go ahead and put the cement barriers for the winter for, just having the snow removal still accessible from the back with the reflective. And then if we can spend some time between now and the spring deciding on a solution for when tourist season opens, so that we can, there are actually cool shorter fences in patterns or that are composite, or we could do a beautiful wood, low, modern, horizontal. I mean, we could just sort of look at some options to sort of beautify this a little bit more, but obviously with the snow plows, you're going to need to protect that area and yet keep it accessible. So
yeah, I welcome that input. If anyone has an idea of a product or something that would make it better, I'm all ears. And in fact, the earlier the better. As far as if a decision is going to be made on some sort of fencing, wintertime would be a great time for the public works staff to work on anything that we're going to implement for the spring. So my suggestion would be to not wait on making that call.
Okay. I have some suggestions, and I could talk to Lauren and you and Cindy and see if we can come up with something. Anybody else that's interested?
Yeah, I'd love some ideas because I'm with Scott and I'm not a landscape designer. So my brain, as much as I've looked up things just to give some suggestions, I'm not finding a lot of great ideas, but maybe we open it up to others who are more creative. But I'm with Scott. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss for trying to figure out how to make this look better, but I bet there are people out there that could help us.
We can do it.
We can do it.
As long as it doesn't snow. That's my biggest concern, is protecting that infrastructure. So Scott, you're thinking some type of a fencing in lieu of, and not cement barriers yet this fall?
My preference would be to get some cement barriers installed, at least in front of that pumping area.
Yeah, and why can't you have enough of those? Can you not then angle them back towards the white bags too to protect it from that side?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would just think we concentrate on protecting that area, cleaning it up. If you can eliminate the fence, the barriers are going to be your protection. I don't know if the fire district plans on removing any of the gangway or not, but yeah, I think that's step one, and that'll buy us time again to prepare something for the spring.
Yes.
You get an old local's opinion, in 3 years, we'll be able to remove all that infrastructure.
Yes, exactly.
15 or 20 years.
Looking forward to it. I did talk to Chief Greg Janik today about that gangway, just kind of in the spirit of doing what we can to make that look better. And that gangway obviously isn't helping the case visually. And that's just the feedback that I got from him was that that's a necessary piece of equipment.
That's fine. That's fine. But we can work around that. So I think Scott got the message. I think we can trust him to put something together that'll take first address his concerns and needs, and yeah, we can keep working towards that. Any more questions for Scott? Hey, I got one question. It's not related, but while you're here, because we got caught blindsided by this last time, we went through a lot of restaurant takeout. Now, obviously, not as many restaurants are open, and the weather's a little different. But I guess we just have to be concerned about being deluged with garbage in our town with the restaurant, the takeout, and so I don't know if you put out all the garbage containers back in winter storage or not, but
we haven't touched them. We've got a couple employees out with COVID right now.
Right, I understand. I just wanted to bring that up. So I guess something you want to be aware of.
Yeah.
And again, it's only for a few weeks, hopefully. So, all right. Any other comments for Scott while he's with us?
Thanks, Scott.
Get well.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thanks. Moving on. Police vehicle, Karen.
I may be out of order, but I wondered if John Moxie would like to move ahead because I can handle the last two. And talk about Campbell Road first.
Does anyone have an objection to that? Sure. So
go for it.
Go ahead, John. Why don't you fill us in on what's happening up in Paradise?
Yeah, Campbell Road, we've been talking about with Douglas for some time now. One of the things that precipitated this was the weeping that has been going on for years now in the hill near Park Street. And I understand, talking to Karen, that some of that has been addressed and improved. What this project aims to do is reconstruct the hill, put in some better drainage features to eliminate it altogether permanently, redirect that water into the drainage system basically in that area, as well as the water main on Campbell is undersized and it's old. So Cal Lake has asked that we look at replacing that. So our project would be to replace the water main from Park Street to McVie, and then reconstruct the hill and crush and shape the rest of that roadway. The road is in a deteriorating condition, and the stress of construction for that water main putting in services across the road, things like that is just going to make that worse. So in the end, we're envisioning you're going to have a brand new asphalt surface. We're going to fix the drainage at the hill, and then brand new water main, water services, hydrants, all of that goes with it. We had applied for some grants in the past few years. Those did not materialize. The city, Saugatuck, had the foresight to kind of take a worst case scenario in their budgeting. So we have the money to do the project in your budget. Douglas is working on it, and they're getting very close on their side too. So we would look at moving forward if you're agreeable with design over the winter and building it sometime potentially next year. Ideally, we try and get it done before July 4th weekend, try and get construction wrapped up. We've talked about whether we push it into the fall, which might help with the Douglas budgeting. So we have some options for construction, but to keep our options open, we thought it was important to get started on design as soon as we can. So that proposal will be in front of you for Monday. What we've done in terms of the agreement is we went back to we did a joint professional services agreement when we did the bridge project because those costs were shared as well. And that went through a lot of wordsmithing with both cities' attorneys and ours. And so we thought in the interest of saving some time and some attorney costs, that's the language that we used for the agreement. And I haven't heard one way or the other if anybody's agreeable or not to that. We're open to whatever. That was just our first thought. So open to any questions, discussion you folks have on what that project might look like.
Mayor?
Yes.
John, do you have access to what funds this money would come out of, or is Peter on?
I could answer that.
Okay, the money that would be coming out, what fund does that come out of? And is that the same fund that if we did anything Park Street, that would come out of that fund too? And how much?
No, Campbell is in the major street and Park is in the local street. We do have 300,000 budgeted for this year. My major question on this project was, are we willing to let it go into the summer? Douglas would like to see it cross fiscal year so that they can pay for part of it after July.
Well, my question is more, and I appreciate that, but let me go back to the funding first. So we have two pots of money, the major streets and what?
Local streets.
Okay, and those are funded through our mill levy, road levy? What are they? Are they coming out of general fund or are they under streets and roads?
It is a combination. We get Act 51 money, and we also have, I cannot answer how much when it is coming from the general fund. John might know. I do know where they're budgeted and the money is there, but where exactly it came from, I can't tell you without looking it up.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Karen, I can't help you on the breakdown either. I just know the total that you already quoted.
I guess my question then is, would we be running into competing requests between Park Street and Campbell Street at some point? Are they, I realize they're in two different major and the other, but if they're coming out of the same funding area, that I'd like to know that. And I can check with Peter to find that out.
It is just a simple accounting thing. It's, we would, I call it putting a fence around it. It's an accounting term, but it can be done.
The big difference between these two projects is one is budgeted, the other is not. So the Campbell Road was specifically budgeted as a joint project with Douglas for the current fiscal year. The beauty of a joint project is we're only going to pay half of it. So it's going to be a project upwards, maybe even north of $600,000 when it's done. So at $300,000 for, close to a half a mile of road versus that's budgeted versus spending million plus, depending on the choice, and not even having, discussions about what we're going to do on Park Street. Not to say we can't have those discussions, but to think we're going to have a Park Street plan enforced by summer 2021 I think is overly optimistic, to be honest. with
Right,
you.
I did misspoke. There is no money in the budget right now for Park Street, but there is for Campbell.
No, I knew that. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Mayor,
Go ahead, Ken. Sorry.
Ken, go ahead.
what about the question of extending the construction on Campbell over the summer? Is that an issue with those of you who live out there?
I think they would gladly trade the improvement for being slightly inconvenienced for a few weeks in the summer. And really, I think they can straddle the fiscal years is what they want to do, just so they can probably finance their share of it in their fiscal year, which also starts July 1.
That's correct. That's exactly what he's looking to do. And Mark, maybe you can weigh in. Is Lakeshore Drive an option to get in kind of the back door for Campbell?
It would be if the road is completely closed. And it depends on how far up Campbell, west of Park Street, you're talking about shutting it down. I mean, you know, I think you get by with, they can work around that water main and rebuilding the road once it's the road, it's the hill that's going to be the big problem. If you're going to be tearing that out. So that definitely would be closed down. And then the access for everyone then could be from from Lakeshore. Let's say it took a week to rebuild the hill area. But yes,
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, thanks for that. I was just confirming because if we do have that back access, I guess I'm a little less nervous about doing it during the summer, because if you live on McVee, say, or Manchester, you could always take that way in when they're working on the hill, say. It's going to be less of an inconvenience if we have multiple ways to get people in and out.
Well, that is going to be more inconvenient for the people who live closer to the hill, you know, on the west end. But I think you just schedule around it. You can make it work. It can be made to work.
Mr. Mayor, this is Garn.
Sure.
So a couple things. So we already have the North Park Street money allocated and set aside, and that project had been delayed from the spring. We're now looking at next spring. So that's already budgeted, right? Correct? Correct. And then, so this is then funding half of the Campbell to McVeigh with Douglas. And then the third would be eventually, maybe as part of that projects list that we're probably going to spend some time on, would be then that south end of Park Street, right? Is that how I'm understanding all this?
Correct. I think the appropriate time to look at the south section of Park Street would be when you do your 2021-22 budget.
Okay. And what I would like to suggest for our two new members, perhaps a recap of all that, since several of us have been a part of this and understand what's involved with it financially, would it probably be a good recap for them so they know what we're talking about.
That'd be great. That's a good point. So the section of Park Street, North Park Street, that Garn mentioned is from Mount Baldhead Park to the North City limits, and actually the township is participating to get to the end of the public road at the north end of the project. This is a resurfacing project. It's a mix of just mill and fill, stripping off the old asphalt, putting down new asphalt, and crush and shape, which is pulverizing the old asphalt to kind of build up the base a little bit better, and then paving over that. We kind of picked which option fit better for various areas, depending on whether it was going to be a problem to raise the road that several inches. That was originally scheduled to happen right as COVID hit. We had really good bid prices on it, and the contractor agreed to extend that work into the fall. And then with the manager changeover and the public relations work that needs to happen with Park Street, because it is a narrow area and sensitive to those property owners, it was decided to move it again to the spring of 2021, which the contractor has agreed to hold their prices again. So we have a really good bid price to get that done next spring is where we stand.
That portion of the project is budgeted in the current year in local streets.
Actually budgeted in the prior budget year also. I think that was kind of a carryover.
Okay,
We
all right.
didn't get
maybe
it
we'll have
done.
to bring it forward.
Yeah.
Yep, I'll work with Peter on that part.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's good to have Peter maybe at our next workshop to talk about these projects for all of our benefit, where the funds are, so on and so forth. He does a good job of laying that out. And then looking at our capital improvement plan alongside that. I think it's also important that he gives us kind of a update on our current existing road projects. We're funded in several different ways. We do have a road millage, and we're also retiring a road bond. So so there are two different funding mechanisms. It's something that Peter needs to bring us an up-to-date and balances on the bond and things like that for not only the new people's benefit, but I think it's always good to review that type of information periodically. So not too distant future, I hope to bring Peter in and have him give us that information. Anything else? Any other questions for John on that project? John, by the way, I can comment on the leakage or the weeping of the road. I don't know, what they did is they actually dug a deep ditch, and what they finally got below were the several drainage lines that were put in at various periods of time over the past, say, 10 years to try to address that groundwater coming up through the concrete. And so I think as long as they keep that ditch cleaned out, they got about 6-8 inches below the lowest drain pipe. It's a pretty deep ditch, but I think that's what did it. They just stopped it from backing up, I think. You're the engineer, but I just sit there and look at it all the time and say,
No,
well,
that's good to know. I appreciate that. That's the way Karen described it too. So yeah, I'm sure the ditch just filled in over time from leaves and debris, which turns into soil, and yeah, I'm sure that's all it was.
All right, John. I guess you're free to go. Thanks again. We'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Thanks, everybody. Great to be with you tonight.
You bet. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Karen.
Okay, the new police vehicle. We have two old blue SUVs, a 2014 and a 2015. The 2015 is being used regularly. The 2014 is in reserve, and it is giving us issues. And I did talk to Kirk about this, and it is in the budget. It was planned to replace it this year. The question is, do we want to continue with white, or do we want to switch over to the sheriff colors? Kirk was of the opinion that we should switch over to the sheriff colors. He said we often get complaints of our white car being seen in the township. And if it was the sheriff colors, it might not be so noticeable. And then the other pro was there's often other sheriff vehicles in the city. So they're already used to seeing the bronze color, the brown bronze. And it looks like we have a larger presence than we already do. And of course, the con is we would lose our unique identity, and we already have 3 cars that are white, and we ordered them white for a reason. So I wanted to get your input on if you want this new car to continue being white, or if you want to blend in with the whole Allegan County Sheriff Department more and choose their colors.
Okay. Ken.
Just a little bit of history. When we negotiated the contract with the Sheriff's Department, one of the things that we thought was extremely important was that our 4 deputies would be visible in our community, that they would introduce themselves to our business owners and to our residents, and that we would try everything we could to make our people, our citizens, feel as if this is our police force. And part of that was to select the white colored car, which would be readily identifiable as a Saugatuck deputy. And I think that's worked out pretty well. I think our deputies are very well known in the community by name. And when they see the white car go by, they know that it's one of our folks. So I strongly feel that we should continue that part of it. I hear very few complaints from people about why that car is in the township or someplace else. I think we did a really intensive job of educating the community about how this contract works. And I think people are very cognizant of the fact that our deputies can be called out to other communities in cases of emergency. So that's my take on it.
Okay. Other comments from council?
Mr. Mayor, this is Garn.
Yes, Garnett.
Yeah, I support that as well. I like having kind of our unique color, and I think the white really stands out, and it's really nice. And I have no problem, rendering aid. I don't know if that's the right term, but all these, I was a part of that focus group way back in the day when we decided to go with our own police, or the contract with the sheriff, if you will, and that was always an understanding that they were still going to be able to render aid no matter where they were. So I don't have an issue if someone's fussing that there happens to be a city vehicle in the township. They're probably rendering aid, which is a good thing. So that's it.
We had a very similar discussion, I think, as Ken said, back when we put the agreement together. And I think at that time, the city manager also lobbied for the copper color, if I recall. But I think the council opted to keep our own identity. Because I remember looking at, right, Ken, we looked at bronze, we looked at white, we looked at blue.
We did.
And we opted to go with the white. And so is there any other comments regarding Scott?
Mayor, just a quick question. I'm assuming there's no difference in cost to the city, whichever color we opt for.
No, there is no difference in cost. I've got both bids in front of me and they're identical, and I just need to know which one to put in Monday's meeting.
And addressing Barry Johnson's comment about an electric vehicle, I'm not so sure they make.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you reminded me of that. There is a hybrid, and it is about $3,000 more. The county is actually going to order a couple of those for their fleet. And my opinion is, why don't we wait and see how the county likes them, and then maybe order one for the next time.
I think that's wise advice.
Mr. Mayor?
One nice thing about this Zoom is I keep seeing people's heads going up and down or sideways, so I kind of know how to steer the discussion. Ken
Mr.
taught me
Mayor?
that trick, actually. Yes, Chris?
I go with white too, thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess you could put a white one in and we'll vote on it Monday night.
Well, good. I was hoping you'd go white as well. So.
Yeah. So moving on to the extended interim city manager contract, that came to council as an addendum today. Last week, Councilman Lewis and myself met with Karen and sat down with her, and we knew that her existing contract was coming to the end at the end of November, and gave her the opportunity to think about it until today. And she actually notified us Monday that she's willing to continue her interim position until the end of January, or until her services are no longer needed. So thus we got the contract, revised contract, presented it to us today. It's got all the necessary details in it. I'll leave it at that. Any questions for Karen? Or do we just want to move it on to Monday night?
Mayor,
Ken?
I'm in favor of just moving it on to Monday night. Karen's been doing a very good job, and I'm glad that we can keep her around until hopefully we get a permanent replacement.
All right.
Thank
Other
you.
comments?
Totally support it.
Totally.
All right, there are those heads bobbing again. Okay, so Karen, you can put it on Monday night for action, please.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your confidence in
Thank you
me.
for your service.
Yeah.
So that kind of wraps up our rather busy agenda this evening. We go back to final comments by the public. They can discuss any item on their mind. Again, please keep it to 3 minutes and identify yourself by name and city or township of residence. So floor is open for any public comment. Gary Johnson. Unmute yourself there, my friend.
It's a whole new world.
There you go.
Yeah, I welcomed the new council members at the last meeting, but now that they're seated, participated in the discussion, I want to welcome them again. They had some good questions today. They hit the floor running. Got a lot to learn, but welcome and do a good job for us.
Thank you, Barry. Anyone out there want to comment? Aaron, help me out. See anybody?
I
Okay.
do not see anybody,
Okay. All right.
except
If
now
not,
Karen.
all right. If not, we'll close that the public comment section and open it to council comments. Ken?
Nothing more, although I'm pleased that our new members are here and look forward to working together as we go down the road.
All right. Thank you. Chris?
Yes, I, like everybody else, have been running out to Oval Beach to see the high waves. And I've noticed specifically that we've lost more beach. And I think one of the things we need to look into as we go through a priority list in capital construction is what we're going to be able to do about that, whether we work with the Army Corps of Engineers as they're pulling sand out, or we try to look for a grant. But I think it's something we all need to hold into our, into our heads, because it looks like it might be an issue.
Right. Thank you. Holly?
None at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Garnett?
I'm going to defer to Karen because she had her hand up. So I'm going to.
Oh,
What you got, Karen?
Oh,
I moved her up to, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring you up to date on where we are with the COVID situation with our employees. As you know, we had one have to be quarantined because he was in close contact with a person who was positive. And then we have 2 employees that were positive. The quarantine period was up this week, and that person is back to work, and our other 2 will be back to work Monday. Scott, who you know was positive, I think that's public information because he said so publicly. It'll be 10 days since he was swabbed positive. So the guidelines are he can come back to work and he feels good. Linda, she had her guidelines were 24 hours after her fever was resolved. And that has been a few days now. It took her a few days more because she is pretty whipped, but she plans to come back to work Monday.
Okay. Thanks for the update. Any questions? If not, I'll open it up to Scott.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Just a big thank you to Aaron and Karen for helping get the freshman council members onboarded. So a big thank you. And Karen, thanks for agreeing to hang out a bit longer. And that's my comment.
All right. Thank you. Lauren?
Mayor, and it's been fun. Lots to learn, as Barry mentioned. But one thing that I noticed that, in these discussions and so much about what this workshop was about today, whether it was the trails or things going on at Willow Park or things happening at Wicks Park, it seems to me that we might be in need of a Parks and Trails Committee or board. I just feel like so much of this needs deeper discussions. It takes up a lot of this, of these meetings, that maybe some of this needs to go to a Parks and Trails board or a Parks and Trails committee. And if that's something that we can discuss at some point, I think we should.
Certainly, you have the right to bring any topic up. Just get a hold of either myself or the city manager, and depending on where we're at with certain things, we can certainly add it to future agendas. Council people have always can add agenda items. We do have a tri-community Parks and Recreation board that's actually, I think, administered through the school system. Whether they can take up something like some of this or not. But along those lines, I certainly understand where you're coming from. So if there's, I've talked enough tonight. I'm tired, so time to go home. So I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Trester, second by Lewis, I believe,
Yes.
to adjourn the meeting. Roll call, please.
Trester,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
Becken.
Yes, yes. Thank you, everybody. Good night and happy Thanksgiving to everybody, because we won't have another meeting until after the holiday. So stay safe and again, enjoy the holiday.
Oh, are we here Monday? Monday?
After Monday. Oh, I'm sorry. Right.
I was so confused.
I'll redo my Thanksgiving wishes Monday. I'll brush up on that. Thank you.
We're getting a
I just
break
want to
there.
make sure you're still on the ball there, Gary. All right.
Thanks, Mark.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.